Suffering from dry, tired, irritated eyes? Don't let dry eyes win. Use Sustain Pro. It hydrates, restores, and protects dry eyes for up to 12 hours. Sustain Pro. Triple action dry eye relief.
You're listening to Sportly, an Immigrantly Media production. April 9th, 2026, the Abimpe district in Ivory Coast. The air inside the Alassane Ouattara Stadium is thick with West African heat. Down on the pitch, 22 players step out under the floodlights. On one side, Turks and Caicos. On the other, 11 women wearing dark green jerseys, adjusting their shin guards, lining up against the center circle as the stadium sound system hums to life. When Pakistan's national anthem echoes across the stadium, it isn't for the men's team. They have never stood on a stage like this. This is the opening match of the 2026 FIFA series, the first time in history a Pakistani national football team, men's or women's, has ever taken the pitch in an official event organized directly by FIFA. And the team standing there nearly didn't exist. Hey everyone, it's Kavitha Davidson, and welcome back to Sportly. The Pakistani women's football team made their historic debut in a FIFA event last April, and in today's episode, I want to look at their journey to that stage. How did a national program with almost no official backing manage to get off the ground? What happened when internal politics completely derailed their progress? And how did a squad built from local and diaspora players end up breaking national records in Ivory Coast? To understand why their debut at the FIFA series was so historic, you have to look at what it took just to get a team on the field in the first place. It required years of grit from players who built the earliest clubs without official support, followed by takeover of Federation headquarters that nearly ended women's football in the country entirely. For decades, the Pakistan Football Federation, the PFF, offered virtually zero infrastructure, pay, or scheduling for women. If a league was going to exist, players and independent organizers had to build it themselves. And so, in 2002, Pakistan's first official women's football club, Dia WFC in Karachi, worked to establish itself as a professional training academy. They organized formal tryouts, hired coaches, and began demanding field access from local sports boards. Gradually, more young girls around the country wanted to play, and other clubs began to form. In 2007, Young Rising Stars FC was established in Rawalpindi. They built a discipline program that dominated the early national women's football championships, producing key players like future national team captain Sanam Mahmood. Things were finally looking up. The national women's team was formed in 2010, and they made their official debut at the South Asian Games. They also reached the semifinals of the inaugural South Asian Football Federation Women's Championship that year.
That was our first international win in that tournament, and our first time that Pakistan women's team made it to the semifinal.
Looking back at those early years, Mahmoud recalls that the hardest part was not the physical demand of training, but the constant fight for basic legitimacy. Their initial performances earned Pakistan its first ever FIFA World Ranking in 2011, proving that the women's team had real international potential if given the proper backing. The love of football kept growing in the country and eventually would supersede the lack of support or infrastructure, even in its most remote corners. In 2018, the Gilgit-Baltistan Girls Football League emerged in the high-altitude Karakoram Mountains near the Afghan border. The founders were sisters Karishma and Sumaira Inayat, who were also determined to give young athletes opportunities to play and grow.
We invited teams from all over the place, even places where we did not really think that girls would play, from very conservative areas, from remote areas.
They didn't have any government grants or even a regular field, but that didn't stop them. They marked lines on mountain dirt in Pasu and organized annual tournaments, proving that talent was everywhere, even if the Federation wasn't looking for it yet.
If my league is making one girl's life better, that is an achievement for me.
So by the late 2010s, the country already had players like Mehwish Khan, Mariam Kagari, and Ruksha Rashid, who were making their way through these club systems and into the national squad. But that momentum didn't last. Between 2014 and 2022, the national team didn't play a single international match. For nearly 8 years, competitive domestic leagues stalled, funding dried up, and an entire generation of national team players was left stranded during their prime athletic years. No single athlete represented the height and ultimate frustration of this era better than Hajra Khan. Hajra was a phenomenon, a track star who scored 9 goals in 3 matches during her very first club tryout. She was the top scorer in national championships 5 years running. She became the first Pakistani woman to train with a top European academy, SGS Essen in Germany, and the first to sign professionally abroad, playing in the Maldives. By age 20, she was named captain of the national team. And Hajra was no figurehead. She used her platform to demand structural reform. She pushed the PFF for contract transparency, travel stipends, and dedicated field access.
Coming in. It's been ugly. It's really been ugly how they have, sort of utilized the funding.
But instead of capitalizing on the team's successes, the Federation plunged into years of internal political warfare and tore itself apart. On March 27, 2021, the National Women's Football Championship was underway in Lahore. Teams from across the country had traveled to compete. That same morning, a political faction led by former PFF president Saeed Ashfaq Hussain Shah stormed the Federation's headquarters. They cornered FIFA's Normalization Committee chairman and his staff inside the building, holding them hostage until they handed over the PFF's bank accounts and checkbooks. Just down the road, 3 semi-finalist teams withdrew in protest, and within hours, the tournament was scrapped. FIFA responded by immediately suspending Pakistan again, and Captain Hajra Khan called it an embarrassment. Between 2017 and 2025, FIFA suspended the PFF 3 times over government interference, primarily driven by state courts trying to force internal elections and appoint administrators outside of FIFA's authority. This was a violation of FIFA rules, which required national associations to operate independently. It led to almost a decade of loss for athletes on both the men's and women's teams. For the politicians warring over the federation, a ban was just legal posturing. For the national teams, it meant no international matches, no FIFA development grants, no qualifiers. Athletes in their prime, like midfielder Suha Harani, watched years of elite athletic conditioning simply evaporate while the administrators fought over bank accounts and funding.
We were banned, and so I was just playing football and not really making money, and the quality of football in this country suffered. We lose a lot of quality players, losing the time we could have had to grow as a country.
On March 2nd, 2025, FIFA finally reinstated Pakistan after the PFF ratified constitutional reforms to protect elections from outside interference. 2 months later, in May 2025, the Federation held its long-delayed elections, bringing in Saeed Mohsen Gilani as PFF president to replace the temporary Normalization Committee.
We really need to improve our ranking. We need to improve our infrastructure. We want to focus on grassroots, and definitely, most importantly, we need to have a proper league in this country.
Gilani's administration immediately focused on institutional recovery, while head coach Adil Rizki was tasked with assembling a roster from scratch.
Starting point was not 0, it was -10, if I would say.
But nearly a decade of bans had wrecked domestic development. If Pakistan was going to compete on an international pitch, Rizki knew they couldn't just rely on what was left of the broken domestic structure. So to construct a competitive roster, the new leadership executed a 2-pronged rebuild. First, they pulled from local domestic standouts, players who had kept training through the ban years. That included Liari-born teenager Muqaddas Abdul Rashid, whose performance in local programs earned her a selection to train at Paris Saint-Germain's academy in Qatar before being called into the national setup. Second, they launched an aggressive global search for the Pakistani diaspora. The anchor of that effort was Maria Khan. Raised in the United States, where she played collegiate soccer, Khan was brought in to captain the team and establish professional standards in training camps. The PFF began recruiting dual national players competing in established international leagues. They brought in Layla Benares, a midfielder playing in England's football pyramid, striker Mariam Mahmoud from West Bromwich Albion, professional winger Aqsa Mushtaq, who played in Italy and Greece, goalkeeper Ziana Jivraj from Canada, and forward Nadia Khan, playing for the Blackburn Rovers in the UK. The result was a remarkable blend of experience on a single roster. Local athletes who had weathered years of administrative bans were suddenly sharing tactical boards and pitch positions with seasoned professionals who had played across Europe and North America. Which brings us back to that hot, humid afternoon in Abidjan on April 9th, 2026. The whistle blows. Pakistan versus Turks and Caicos. Just 10 minutes into the match, the years of anxiety from governance chaos melts away from the team's shoulders. Nadia Khan collects a long ball down the right wing, cuts inward, and lifts a high cross toward the penalty box. Zamena Malik reads the flight, cushions it with one touch off her thigh, and before the ball hits the grass, she strikes it on the volley. The ball flies into the top corner. Pakistan didn't just win their first official FIFA match, they also broke their previous scoring record. The final score was 8-0, the largest victory in the history of Pakistan's national team.
And there is the full-time whistle then. An emphatic victory for Pakistan.
The story of Pakistani women's football has never been about passive survival. It is defined by pioneers like Rubina Irfan and the Inayat sisters who built clubs out of nothing. Leaders like Hajra Khan and Suha Harani, who kept the flame alive through a decade of administrative neglect, and a squad assembled across continents that proved what happens when Pakistani women are finally given a pitch to play on. Pakistan finished third overall in the 2026 FIFA series, but for the squad, the scorecards were less important than the stage. More than anything, the tournament offered them a long overdue opportunity to learn, adapt, and improve their game. For a team that spent years in total limbo, Abidjan wasn't the end of a long struggle. It was the moment Pakistani women's football finally stepped into the light, ready to make its mark. Thanks so much for tuning into Sportly. Tune in next week and every week after as we dive into another great story. And if you enjoyed this episode, rate and review us on your favorite podcast app or come tell us on Instagram. You'll find us at SportlyPod. Sportly is an Immigrantly Media production. This episode was produced by Paroma Chakravarti. Our executive producer is Sadia Khan, researched and written by Juan Sebastian Camacho. Our sound designer and editor is Paroma Chakravarti. Our theme music was created by Simon Hutchinson. Other music by Epidemic Sound. Tune back in next week for more Sportly.